As you can see, I have entitled our presentation for today. Actually, I had a completely different idea what to preach to you. Unfortunately, I just managed to touch on it in this study, and we have to continue some next time. But today we're going to do something that is called We Have to Wake Up. Every time I preach, I don't know about my other co-preachers, but every time I preach, I give everything out of what I have. Because I don't know if I'll see you next time, and I want to tell you as much as I can. Nobody has the warranty and the guarantee that we'll see each other next time, next day, next hour. Therefore, we have to preach and we have to live as if this is our last. I remember there was a minister once, and he talked to me about his concerns about the situation of how we as God's people are heading, the direction of where our church is going to. And he was very concerned. And I told him, listen, why don't preach about it? And he didn't preach. He preached one of those sermons that nobody remembers after you preach it. The next time I heard about this preacher, he was dead. He was dead. That's why it is so important to seize every opportunity we have. Today, we live in the last days, in the last seconds of this earth's history. And we as Seventh-day Adventists have become very shy of mentioning this fact. We're almost scared that we might offend somebody by presenting to them the fact that the time is running out and we don't have it anymore. The spirit of prophecy tells us that this is exactly what I should be preaching to you today, and everybody in that respect. Evangelistic work, opening the scriptures to others, warning men and women of what is coming upon the world, is to occupy more and still more of the time of God's servants. So you see proportion here. The more we come to the close of the time, the more we have to preach about it. The events that are surrounding that event. What is happening? We have to wake up. And instead of that, we don't hear much of this. In fact, I'm hungry to hear something like this. So therefore I say, well, let me preach it, at least me. Now, April the 4th in 1912, do you know what this date is associated with? Exactly. On that fatal night, around 11 o'clock at night, Titanic struck an iceberg. 1,500 people lost their lives. That was one of the largest and the worst peacetime maritime disaster in history. Do you know why Titanic struck that iceberg? Were the lookouts or the watchmen sleeping? No, they didn't. They simply saw the iceberg too late. Do you know why? They didn't have binoculars. The binoculars were on the ship, but they were in their locker and the key wasn't there. So they couldn't access them. By the time they saw the iceberg, it was too late. And 1,500 lives later, everything is history. I found this amazingly comparison to what we live in. Our civilization, our world, our church is heading in Titanic's footsteps. Listen to this. The world has become bold in transgression. How about if you put a little disclaimer notes, and the church also? Of God's law, transgression of God's law. Because of his long forbearance, men have trampled upon his authority. But there is a line beyond which they cannot pass. The time is near when they will have reached the prescribed limit the Lord will interpose to vindicate his honor, to deliver his people, and to repress the swellings of unrighteousness. There is a line. There is a limit. That limit has been what? Prescribed. What does a limit has been prescribed mean? Prescribed comes from two Latin words, pre and scribed. That means pre-written, written before time. So there is a limit, and who wrote that limit? God himself. God has set a limit for our world, for our civilization, for Satan himself. And that limit cannot be passed over. And we, as Titanic, but there is not a single iceberg, there is a wall surrounding that ship. We are heading to that direction. And the crash is inevitable. 1972. I remember that date straight away because this is my birth date. I was born in 1972, so I can't forget that. But in 1972, which is about 53 years from now, a society by the name of the Club of Rome, that's one of the so-called scientific societies that are teaching us that today the world is collapsing, there's a global warming, we have to save the planet, and all that sort of stuff. But that society in 1972, 40 years before things started happening, said something very interesting. 40 years after its initial publication, The Limits of Growth, and you can see the book there, a study called The Limits of Growth is looking depressingly precedent, commissioned by an international think tank called the Club of Rome. The 1972 report found that if civilization continues on its path toward increasing consumption, the global economy would collapse by 2030. Population losses would ensue, and things would generally fall apart. So these scientists told us that if we continue with our lifestyles of destroying our, as the Pope loves to say, common home, by 2030, we'll see the collapse of our civilization. That article was basically written in 2012, and they were referring to the study from 1972. In a few further years back, in 2018, another article came which said, as reported by the Australian broadcaster ABC, the model's calculation took into account trends in pollution levels, population growth, the amount of natural resources, and the overall quality of life on Earth, talking about the same article. The model's predictions for the worsening quality of life and the dwindling natural resources have so far been unnervingly on target. So they say, this guy said it in 1972. Until 2018, things are happening exactly as they said it. And they continue what they said. In fact, 2020 is the first milestone envisioned by World One. This is actually the computer they were using. That's when the quality of life is supposed to drop dramatically. The broadcaster presented this scenario and how it would lead to the demise of large numbers of people. What is the demise? The destruction, the death. So they were saying, listen, the world is going to collapse by 2030, but the first milestone will be by 2020, but there's nothing to worry about, is there? Because nothing happened in 2020, did it? So they continued, and this is what they actually say in that article. At around 2020, the condition of the planet becomes highly critical. If we do nothing about it, the quality of life goes down to zero. Pollution becomes so seriously it will start to kill people, which in turn will cause the population to diminish lower than it was in the 1900s. That's what they're saying. And we know that we hit that so-called milestone, and as somebody here whispered, COVID. It happened. Well, it didn't happen in the envisagement they had, that we're going to be almost obliterated, because nothing really happened so dramatically apart from the COVID, which was exaggerated to the degree that had to scare everybody. But still, there was a serious impact upon the life of many people. Some people died. Many people lost their jobs. Victoria is in the worst situation all over Australia because of what happened here. We're the lockdown capital of the world. But they continue saying, if you continue like this is the first warning, but if you continue like this, the life on this planet will drop dramatically down to the levels of the 1900s. I don't know about you, but I'm wondering what was the population rate in the 1900s. Do you want to know? At the turn of the 20th century, according to population by country in 1900, at the turn of the 20th century, the global population included around 1.65 billion people, as compared to the nearly 8.5 billion people today. So according to the schedule, the population has to be below 1.5 million, roughly. So that means you have to somehow demise, that's the scientific world, you have to demise close to 7 billion people. So look at yourself here. Out of every 8 people, 7 have to go. That's a lot. That is scary. This is the plan. The article says that this happens because of natural disasters and our contribution to the worsening situation in the environment and the planet as a whole. But whatever it is, the plan is 7 out of 8 have to go. And immediately after COVID, the WHO, which is not the WHO, the World Health Organization, came with the warning articles. At the World Economic Forum, the World Health Organization issued a warning to world leaders saying the world could face a pandemic 20 times worse than COVID-19 in the future. Scientists have issued a terrifying warning that the next global pandemic could send 1 billion people to their graves. Oh, these people are not joking. They mean business. And they call the next virus to be disease X. And how many people know this individual here? Bill Gates. In his speech, Innovating to Zero, in 2010, he said something very interesting. He says something that many people say he didn't say it. But I had to listen to about 1 hour of scientific talk coming from him in order to realize that what he said was exactly what he said. He said the world today has 6.8 billion people. That was in 2010. That is headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if you do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%. And the media said, well, he didn't say that. He didn't mean that. Eddie, would you be able just to, I just want to hear it from the horse's mouth, just not to say that I've been typing things here that are not right.
That's 4 factors, a little bit of multiplication. So you've got a thing on the left, CO2, that you want to get to 0. And that's going to be based on the number of people, the services each person's using on average, the energy on average for each service, and the CO2 being put out per unit of energy. So let's look at each one of these and see how we can get this down to 0. Probably one of these numbers is going to have to get pretty near to 0. That's back from high school algebra. But let's take a look. First,
Keep going.
got population. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%. But there we see an increase.
There you go. He said it. It is in there. Now, interestingly enough, when the war in Ukraine happened, that individual that you see in there, who is that? Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, brought the idea that there is a so-called golden billion of elite individuals who are going to rule the world, and their reason and their sole meaning in life is to enslave the rest of the people if they don't manage to kill as many as they can. And everybody again started kicking out and saying, well, what Putin is talking is just nonsense. There's no such thing as golden billion. We're all brothers after all, and sisters. We all love each other. But he is still maintaining that idea. And now again, is there such a thing as golden billion of rich elite living upon the face of the earth? Again, from the same talk, probably a few seconds later, the same person says getting rid of poverty means providing new services to almost everyone on the planet. In a rich world, perhaps top 1 billion, we probably could cut back and use less. And he continues. So just he throws it like this. Eddie, we probably leave it. We're not going. I've got the evidence here, but just to save time, we're not going to watch this one. But he said it again. He said in the rich world, perhaps top 1 billion, we can do something about it. So after all, what Putin was saying might be true. Who is we? Well, the very person who spoke was one of the we. He is estimated to have $107.4 billion. And if you think that is a lot, it is not. Because he is number 15 on the list. Going to number 4, that is the one that many of us follow very blindly, the owner of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg. And who do you think will be number 1? This is the number 1. He was sitting right next to the right hand of the new president of the United States of America. A very powerful man indeed. And according to the sources, the richest on earth. Now, do you think he is the richest? And who made him to be so rich? Well, coming from his own mouth, he says, I do think that Putin is significantly richer than me, Musk sensationally claimed in an interview with the German businessman, journalist Matthias Doffer. When asked by a shocked Doffer to elaborate, the tech billionaire remained tight-lipped. So he didn't want to say anything else, but he said, listen, you think I'm the richest? No, I'm not. Putin is the richest. You remember who was talking about the golden billion? Putin. You know, this is like the game of guess who is who in the zoo. You know, you can't really find them. They're so slippery, these people. Now, whoever it might be, somebody must have made him rich. You know, I've been always wondering how people who come from nowhere become multimillionaires. You know, not many have that happiness and luck in life. You have to be somebody to become somebody. Now, the Bible tells us how this is happening. This is our very message that we're supposed to be proclaiming. The other angel. After these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon, the great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and cage of every unclean and hateful bird. For all nations, listen to this, for all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and these are the Musks, these are the Putins, these are the Gates, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. Later the Bible, when it says about the burning of Babylon, it says that these same merchants cry about her because there's such a big wealth has been diminished now. Now, okay, we can see that there is a system called Babylon that makes all those golden billion, the golden billion. It's called Babylon. It is her, according to the Bible. It's not him. And she is the main factor of why this is happening. Now, who is Babylon and who is her? So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her head was a name written, Mystery Babylon the Great, mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs. Again, we see this is a woman. It's her. It's a woman. A woman in the biblical prophecy is a church. It is dressed in scarlet. It is dressed in purple. It comes, where did he see her? Comes from the wilderness. Very interesting. I've never noticed that this woman now has changed locations. Before it was said that she sits upon the waters, multitudes, but now she is in the wilderness. Who came out from the wilderness? In Revelation 13, there was a beast that looked like a lamb. It came out from the earth, from unpopulated places. Now this harlot, Babylon, has changed locations. She is where that other beast is. She has killed millions, and they say probably up to 100 million Christians have lost their lives during the dictatorship and tyranny of that system. Now, who is that? Who is that? We all know, but let's hear it from the spirit of prophecy. In Revelation, Babylon is represented as a woman, a figure which is used in the scriptures as a symbol of a church. A virtuous woman represents a pure church, a vile woman, an apostate church. Babylon is said to be a harlot, and the prophet beheld her drunken with the blood of the saints and martyrs. Babylon thus describes Rome, the Catholic system. Now you wonder why those predictions happen. This system has the power of changing the world at their wish. She is controlling the kings and the merchants of the earth. She is controlling the events as she pleases. The science, so-called, is controlled by her. The media, the schools you send your children, the tentacles of that system are everywhere, and even in the church. The Roman Catholic Church, according to the 10 richest religions in the world, the Roman Catholic Church is almost certainly the wealthiest organization in the world. In the United States alone, it is estimated that the Catholic Church has an operating budget of $170 billion. This is their budget. $170 billion for a year. Very rich indeed. So the world doesn't know any of those things. The world is nervous. They're like rats. Before the flooding comes, they know that something is happening. They get nervous, anxious, stressed, they commit suicide, but they don't know what to do. The present is a time of overwhelming interest to all living, rulers and statesmen, men who occupy positions of trust and authority. Thinking men and women of all classes have their attention fixed upon the events taking place about us. They observe the intensity that is taking possession of every earthly element, and they recognize that something great and decisive is about to take place, that the world is on the verge of a stupendous crisis. This is the world. They realize something is coming, and they're scared about it, and they don't know what to do. How about the Pope? You know, we have been blessed with the first Jesuit Pope in history. The first Jesuit Pope. The Jesuits were the champions of popery, the ones who were supposed to extinguish and eliminate the truth and Protestantism. And here we have him. What he said is very interesting. Pope predicted a brief tenure for himself. I have the feeling that my pontificate will be brief, 4 or 5 years. I do not know, even 2 or 3. I do not know. But I feel that the Lord has placed me here for a short time and nothing more. You know, the Jesuits know the Bible very well. You know, actually, they don't read only the Bible. They study the Bible, and they study the spirit of prophecy. You've got the link there. I've shown that before. I don't want to repeat myself now. They study the writings of Ellen White as you have never studied them yourself. They know what is happening. They know what is coming. They know what the spirit of prophecy warns about, and they don't want you to know. But they know, and that's why the Pope has the boldness to say, the time is short. How about the one who has inspired that whole system? Satan, does he know? Therefore rejoice ye heaven, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he guesses that he had but a short time. Is that what it says? He knows. He knows. How does he know? Where does he know from? The spirit of prophecy. You know, that's why Satan hates the spirit of prophecy. It just points the torchlight on everything that we're not supposed to know and makes it plain for us. And if we have more zeal and desire to know the truth, we will know it. It says Satan is a diligent Bible student. He knows that his time is short, and he seeks at every point to counterwork the work of the Lord upon this earth. The moment the Bible started to be written, he started to study. The moment Ellen White started to write her page, he started to study. But this is not the only thing. He was, and he is the main character of the drama. One of the 2 great characters. And he is much more intelligent than any one of us here. Can you count to 6,000? To 10,000? I believe you can. And he can. He has been in Eden, and he can count. Year by year, by year, by year, and he knows when that year is going to come. And that's why he's getting so nervous, and that's why he doesn't want us to know. It was God's purpose to place things. That's how it all happened. It was God's purpose to place things on an eternal basis of security. And in the councils of heaven, it was decided that time must be given to Satan to develop the principles in which, which were the foundation of his system of government. He had claimed that this was superior to God's principle. Time was given for the working of Satan's principle, that they might be seen by the heavenly universe. In the very beginning, when the rebellion of Satan happened in heaven, God said, this is the time. I'm going to start giving you a time. You have to prove yourself. These are the rules. A limit was prescribed. The interesting thing is prescribed means something else, not only written beforehand, but according to the dictionaries, it means to set or lay down authoritatively for direction, to give a rule of conduct as to prescribe laws or rules to direct. That tells me that God is in a complete control. You know, it's not only a limit somewhere, and God doesn't know what to do from there, but he has given the directions. And he said, these are the rules. You follow the rules. Now, how can we find how much time has been given to Satan? There is a verse that we all know. The verse in Isaiah 46. It says, remember the former things of old, for I am God, and there is none else. I am God, and there is none like me, declaring the end from the beginning, and from ancient times the things that are not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand, and I will do all my pleasure. Now, how do we understand that? I mean, I was always thinking, okay, so that proves God to be God. Whatever happens in the past, or whatever he says from the past and happens in the future, that's it. That means that he is in control. And that is true. That's exactly what it means. But also it tells us something else, that if you want to know what is going to happen in the last days, you have to look in the beginning. The beginning will tell you what's going to happen in the last days. So what happened in the beginning? There were 7 days of creation, weren't there? 7 days. Well, the Sabbath was made, so I include that as the part of the creation. There were 7 days that God created. That's what I should say. 7 days that God created. And the 7th was the rest. The first 6 were designed to be the days of work. The 7th was designed to be a day of rest. How can that first week tell us something about what is going to happen? I mentioned that in the Sabbath school. It says the central theme of the Bible, the theme about which every other in the whole book clusters, is the redemption plan. The burden of every book and every passage of the Bible is the unfolding of this wondrous theme. So every book, every passage, every sentence, every dot of the Bible is designed to direct your attention to the redemption or the salvation of you and me. This is the whole thing. How can then the creation week tells me about my redemption? And I thank Jared for this quote here. It says there that on account of the special honors God conferred upon the 7th day, he requires his people to number by sevens. Now, do you realize that the Bible is a book of sevens? You got 7 days in the week. You got the 7th day is the Sabbath. You got the 7th or the 7 feasts. The priest, when he went into the holy place, had to sprinkle 7 times before the curtain. There were 7 priests who were surrounding Jericho. They had to surround the city 7 times on the 7th day. They had to blow their trumpets 7 times. Elijah had to wait 7 days before the rain came. Noah had to wait 7 days before the rain came. Actually, Elijah had to wait 7 times. There were 7 candlesticks in the book of... You see, it's something like, the fireworks we have for New Year's Eve. When the last fireworks come, it becomes almost like a crescendo. One after another. The climax takes place. In the book of Revelation, that 7, number 7, is getting repeated so many times. 7 churches, 7 stars, 7 candlesticks, 7 spirits, 7 seals, 7 trumpets, 7 plaques. Bang, 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 bang. Fireworks. Exactly. And listen to what it says in terms of how man was created. The physical structure of the body. Here Jehovah has given a specimen of himself. For man was made in the image of God. So when you were created, when Adam was created, there is a specimen of God in you. How do you understand that? What is a specimen? Is that the whole lot? When somebody takes blood from you, they say they're taking a specimen of blood from you. That's a sample. It's not the whole blood. It's just a tiny portion of your blood is taken to be examined. Now, you have a specimen of God. Your week is a specimen of God's week. God's week is infinitely or much greater, much larger than what we have. Now, is that so? According to 2 Peter, we're told that this is exactly so. It says, but beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day is with the Lord as 1,000, I put this in brackets, as 1,000 human years. And 1,000 human years as one day with the Lord. So what it tells us, if you look at the week, one of those days of the week is exactly as 1,000 years for the Lord. And we were told that a time was given, you remember that? A time was given for the working of Satan. The first 6,000 years, corresponding to the first 6 days, is the time for the working of Satan. The 7,000 years is called the millennium of rest. And do you think Satan knows all this? Well, it says he studied the Bible. He was in Eden. Now, I've put the 4,000 year in a different color here, if you can see. What happened on the 4,000 year, on Wednesday? And perhaps that's why our church and the Seventh-day Adventist Church made their prayer meetings on Wednesday. That was the time when Jesus came. That was the time for the prayer meeting. On Jordan's banks, the voice from heaven, attended by the manifestation from the excellent glory, proclaimed Christ to be the Son of the Eternal for 4,000 years, ever since the declaration was made to Adam that the seed of the woman would bruise the serpent's head. He, Satan, had been planning his manner of attack. You know, we've got a time setting here, time setters. Ellen White was a time setter, if you want to call her that. I mean, I don't say anything wrong calling somebody a time setter, because she definitely says that she set a time and she said when it started. From the time God said to Adam and Eve, and he shall bruise thy head, referring to the snake. From that time till the time Jesus went to be baptized, it says there was 4,000 years going. When was that time? According to Daniel chapter 9, verse 25, that was in year 27 AD. And to make the confirmation, the Bible says that this is the year, I think it was saying the 13th year or the first year of the Tiberius, which was exactly the 27th AD. Then Jesus was baptized. And listen to what happens after. Jesus gets baptized by John. He comes out from the water. A voice came from heaven saying that this is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. And immediately the Spirit driveth him into the wilderness. You know, the Bible, what happened to Jesus is exactly what happened to Adam. Adam fell. They heard the sentence. Jesus was immediately driven to the wilderness. That tells me that Adam was immediately with Eve, driven out from Eden, on that very same day. Very interesting. To drive, according to the Greek, means to lead 1/4 of a way somewhere with a force which he cannot resist. Jesus was basically forced by the Spirit to go into the wilderness. It says there that in year 27, Christ, in the wilderness of temptation, stood in Adam's place to bear the test he failed to endure. Here Christ overcame in the sinner's behalf 4,000 years after Adam turned his back upon the light of his home. That's exactly what we've been discussing here. So Satan has studied. He knows. He counted. He counted to 4,000, and he saw that Jesus came exactly on the 4,000 year. And he realized, hang on, there is a period for me still to go. Because the week has 6 days. Therefore, 6,000 years. There are another 2,000 years for me to go. Is that so? Who are these? Who are these? My wife said, don't put this picture, it's very graphic. That's what it was. The Bible is a graphic book. The Bible is a book of life. These are the two demoniacs of Gadara. It says they were more like beasts than humans. Their bodies were lacerated by wounds, bleeding, and they came and roared at Jesus, willing to devour him. It says there in the spirit of prophecy that Jesus didn't lose confidence as the disciples, because disciples ran for their lives, they left Jesus behind. And when they turned, after a few kilometers of running, they turned, I'm just putting the kilometers for me, they turned and they saw Jesus sitting in full self-possession, facing the demoniacs with his hand stretched up. And the demoniacs couldn't come further. But listen to what happens. Listen to what happens here. The demons started talking to Jesus. Jesus didn't talk to humans anymore. He talks to the entities inside those humans. And they say, and behold, they cried out, saying, what have we to do with thee, Jesus, thou Son of God? Art thou come hither to torment us? And listen to the last three words. Before the time. What year was that? Year 4000 of the creation. They say, Jesus, you are not keeping your contract. The prescribed limit is 6,000. You are coming at the 4,000 year. Are you coming to torture us? Are you so unfair? Even the demons knew. So, what I'm trying to build up here, and you've got another 10 minutes. We learned that the world knows. We learned that the Pope knows. We learned like Satan, the demons know. We didn't hear, but I can prove to you that the reformers knew, that the apostles knew, that the first church knew the time. How about you and I? Today we say we cannot know the time. Ellen White says, even if you cannot know the exact day and hour, you have to, you must know how near it is. You have to know it. If you don't know it, it is criminal. How about us? My preaching was entitled, Wake Up. Wake Up. Ellen White says here, men and women, that's probably not our church. I just exaggerated the example. You know what I mean? It's obviously we don't all sleep like this. But maybe spiritually inside we're like that. Men and women in the last hours of probation. I would say that was written 100 and something years ago. I would say we're in the last milliseconds of probation. And yet, a careless, Ellen White didn't use political correctness when she wrote. They are careless and stupid, she says. And preachers have no power to arouse them. They are asleep themselves, sleeping ministers preaching to a sleeping people. And listen to the storm of words that come after that. Oh, my heart is burdened as to see our people sleepy, stupid, and almost indifferent. The people of God are stupid, and as it were paralyzed. Stupidity in this watching time is sealing the senses of God's people as to the signs of the times. Now, very, very serious accusations here, Sister White. How do you dare to call us stupid? I mean, after all, some of us have PhDs. Some of us are theologians. And you, who are you, Ellen White? You don't even have fourth grade. But she has the grade of eternity. She was the prophet of the Almighty God. And she says that you and I are stupid. We're paralyzed. We're senseless. We don't care about anything anymore. And I'm wondering why. Why is that we're in such a bad shape today? What happened to us? What makes us to be like this? Or rather, who made us to be like this? You know, we have recent mothers here. And I've been not that recent young father in the past. And you know what happens when the baby cries at night? The mother says to the father, usually, go and see what's happening. The father goes and gets at least that's what I remember was happening, gets the baby, and the baby starts crying even more. The father is hopeless of making that baby fall to sleep. Until the mother comes, she grabs the baby in a very gentle way. And no matter where, in Australia or Romania or Bulgaria or Africa, they use the same language. The language is shh, 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 shh. Have you heard that language? Shh, shh, shh. They all speak the same language. And what happened to those restless babies? They've been knocked out. The mother's touch, nobody can match. Until the ministers came into the stage of life. Our ministers, I would compare them to very good mothers. They know how to put the church to sleep. And I've seen physical and spiritual sleeping in churches when ministers start preaching. And many times we say, well, if I have this minister, I have to record that preaching and I just put it just before I go to sleep. It will put me to sleep straight away. And it happens. I've seen it in churches. It happens in churches. Now, sometimes the babies struggle. The baby starts kicking and pushing and they say, I don't want to sleep. And the mother says, shh, 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 shh. Applies a little force, gentle force, and the baby goes to sleep. And sometimes we as those unruly children start sort of, but how about this? How about that? How about 2020? How about the 2000? How about the Twin Towers? How about the 2008, the world collapse, the economic collapse? How about the COVID? Shh, 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 shh. And we fall asleep. Now, I'm sorry we don't have ministers here, but for everybody who wants to preach and who wants to teach, how to become a useless shepherd. That's the secret. How to become a useless shepherd. And once upon a time, there were ministers. Ministers who could not be bought or sold. Ministers who stood for the right even if the heavens fall. Ministers who upheld the principles. Ministers who went to the prison because they did not want to sacrifice their principles. Ministers who were murdered because they didn't sacrifice their principles. Until those ministers started to close their eyes slowly in death. And the new generation of ministers sprang up. And the new generations were a little bit different than the old ones. According to the spirit of prophecy, it tells us that I have been shown that why ministers have no more success is they're afraid of hurting feelings, fearful of not being courteous, and they lower the standard of truth and conceal it if possible, the peculiarity of our faith. Like Nicodemus, what we heard about it. Let me go at night, so the people don't see me that I belong to this bunch of people. And as false shepherds are crying peace and preaching smooth things, the servants of God must cry aloud and spare not and leave the result with God. If you want to be a useless minister, well, be afraid. Be afraid of hurting feelings. Be wanting to be popular. Because this is what it's all about. I want to be popular. I want everybody to like me. But this is not what it was in the time of Jesus. Was Jesus popular? What happened to Jesus? His very first preaching, they took him out from the church and took him to the brow of the hill. Why? To show him the nature? And the Bible says they want to throw him from that precipice headlong, head first. Why? Make sure he's killed. He wasn't very popular. John lost his head. Jeremiah was boiled. Jeremiah was put in dungeon. John was boiled. The fine dining experience? How do you understand the fine dining? You got a big plate, and you got nothing in. Probably a leaf of lettuce. And our churches, unfortunately, have become like fine dining restaurants. We dress up nice, we put our fine clothes, we pay big money, and we are fed with nothing. We go home hungry. And this is sad. And this is sad. A smooth sermon so often preached make no lasting impression. Men are not cut to the heart because the plain, sharp truths of the Word of God are not spoken to them. Oh, how many times we have been spoken the sharp truths? We learn about the love of God. We learn about the unity. We learn about how we have to behave here and there. But nothing to cut. You have to be politically correct. You have to be polite. You tell me which pointed instrument is polite. It cuts. It pricks. But that is what saves. And here, I've been talking about it, but I want to talk again. When you see a sign like this in front of a business, what is that telling you? Under new management. That means that the old management is not good enough. We are starting anew, and we will make improvements. Now, as far as I remember, this was, when I came to this church, this was our sign. After that, we progressed to this sign. After that, now we're left with this sign. Each one of the following is more uncertain what it is. But now we have the final one. Now we have the final one, which apparently these three scribbles, they have to represent the four angels. But what this tells me, could it be that this is a signage that tells me that we are under new management? That we're going to discard the old things and we're starting something anew? Well, it's not only what I'm saying, it is also what the Spirit of prophecy is saying. This new management doesn't come from God. It comes from the enemy of souls. The enemy of souls has sought to bring in the supposition that a great reformation was to take place among Seventh-day Adventists. And that this reformation would consist in, look at this, we call Seventh-day Adventists reform movement. We're reformers. Now, this new reformation is going to consist in giving up the doctrines which stand as the pillars of our faith. The principles of truth will be discarded. Our religion will be cancelled. Will be changed. The fundamental principles that have sustained the work would be accounted as error. A new organization would be established. Books of new order would be written. A system of intellectual philosophy would be introduced. So see all these things that are going to happen if a new organization or new management has taken over. Did this happen ever? Well, it did happen in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. We don't have to really hide the facts about it. The Seventh-day Adventist Church, the big congregation, is not what it was in the time of Ellen White. But how about us? You know, the funny thing with the prophecy is that the prophecy would cut if you go across. If you go on its way and go contrary to it, it will cut. It will point to you. The enemy of soul has sought to destroy the doctrines which stand as the pillars of our faith. Do you remember our doctrines, by the way? You've got the Godhead, you've got the sanctuary, you've got the Sabbath, you've got the dress reform, you've got the health reform, you've got the, 2,300 days. We've been teaching people when they were coming to get baptized on those doctrines. But there are two that Satan really hates. The ordinance of baptism and the Lord's Supper are the two monumental pillars. Do you reckon we've changed those a bit? We didn't change them, we just modified them. We made them a bit more convenient. So, the conclusion of the matter is nations' sin and nations' ruin were due to the religious leaders. And now we can say amen and continue sleeping. Many times in our judicial system, this is the only reason that will excuse any criminal not to be taken and put in jail. Because of their past. Because of this and that and the other one. Because of Satan. Because of the leaders. But know where the buck stops, as Kevin Rudd used to say? the buck stops with you. The buck stops with me. Our leaders can do anything. And I'm not saying everybody is like that. And I'm still saying this is the Church of God. I don't know if it will continue to be, but at this stage it is. We still haven't changed too much. But eventually, ultimately, it is up to you and up to me whether I'm going to be saved or lost. The Lord does not work to bring many souls into the truth because of the church members who have never been converted. We talked about this, people being baptized without being converted. Can you believe that people could sit here without even believing in Christ? That's what it says. People who have never been converted. And those who were once converted but who have backslidden. Did this happen to us? Did this happen to me? How about after COVID? Did it happen to our church? And this is what I want to preach to you. I'm really rushing it here. I want to preach to you about the 10 virgins, but I'll preach next time. The only thing what I want to say to you is that there are a few characters in this parable that we have to remember. There are 5 and 5, and according to the Bible, they all asleep. And here our pastors are telling us, see, they're all asleep, the church is sleeping, don't worry, continue sleeping, eventually you might wake up. Is that so? Is that so? Then who made that cry? I ask. At midnight there was a cry made, behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him. It is in a crisis that character is revealed. When the earnest voice proclaimed at midnight, behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye to meet him, the sleeping virgins were rose from their slumbers. So if we all sleep, who is going to make the cry? We'll find that one next time, God willing, if I have the time to preach about this. But what I would like to say, not all are sleeping. Somebody is awake to wake the rest up. At midnight, when is the midnight? It says this is the darkest hour. So the coming of Christ will take place in the darkest period of this earth's history. When is the darkest period? When is that going to happen? There hasn't been anything darker than the implementation, the legislation of the law of keeping the Sunday. And all the atrocity that are going to follow. Ellen White says, human heart could be very cruel. And it will be very cruel. All the big cathedrals are equipped underneath in their basements with their instruments of torture. In the darkest hour, that voice says, wake up. And to emphasize the point that it is deadly to sleep today, and you shouldn't be listening to the ministers who tell you that you should be sleeping because the church is portrayed as sleeping church. Ellen White says, what shall I say to arouse the remnant people of God? I was shown that dreadful sins are before us. Satan and his angels are bringing all their powers to bear upon God's people. He knows that if they sleep a little longer, he is sure of them, for their destruction is sure, is certain. Don't sleep. I've got so much to tell you, so much to tell you. I just want to finish with this. How do we know that we're on the very brink of midnight, the legislation of the Sunday law? Have a look at this. Do you know what this is? This is our current world as it has been mapped, and I better read it. It says, as of 2025, marriage between same-sex couples is legally performed and recognized in 38 countries, with a total population of 1.5 billion people. The most recent jurisdiction to legalize same-sex marriage is Thailand, which happened on the 25th of January this year. And we know that when this happened in our country, that was on the 9th of December 2017. 2 years earlier, it happened in the United States of America, and that's where we have to focus. Because America is the focal, that's where the scope goes. That is the country of interest for the last days. On the 26th of June, it happened in America, 2015. And since then, most of Europe has been covered by that. You've got Greece, Switzerland, Slovenia, Austria, Germany, Ireland, Luxembourg, United Kingdom, France, Canada, etc., etc. And what I can, most of this, Brazil, most of the South America has been covered there. And what I can see is all these countries that have been affected are the so-called civilized and powerful nations. Now, why am I giving you this? And what is that to do with the Sunday law? You know, in the beginning, there were two institutions in the paradise that were contributive of the happiness and the prosperity of mankind. Jesus pointed his hearers back to the marriage institution as originated creation. Then marriage and the Sabbath had their origin, twin institutions for the glory of God and the benefit of humanity. What is that to have with the Sunday law? Think about it. We know these paragraphs painfully well, but we never thought about it. The marriage and the Sabbath were called how? The twins. This is the true twin. This is God's twin. The homosexual marriage or same-sex marriage and the Sunday law are not the two twins, but these are Satan's twins. Tell me, how soon is twin coming to, let's say the first twin comes, how long after that the second comes? Another 10 years? 20 years? Pretty much straight after. I have to tell you, the first twin has been already born. Our civilized world has embraced the idea of the first twin. It is already there. How long before the second comes? Pretty much very soon. 2025 will be a very interesting year. We have two old new presidents. President Donald Trump and our president of the Reform Movement. One of them for sure is a Jesuit, or at least Jesuit trained. I'm talking about Donald Trump. Don't think that I'm saying anything. The first one will bring big changes in our world, and he already started. He started outraging the people. He will bring revolution as predicted, a second civil war, as predicted by the spirit of prophecy. Have you heard about Project 2025? If you haven't, I don't have time to talk to you about it. Study about it. This is where the Sunday law is in the pipelines. And President Donald Trump is highly appreciative of that document. So may the Lord help us to realize how close we are. The time is short. We don't have time. I have more to say to you, but I don't have the time. May the Lord bless us. Amen.